Hi, Gary Port, friend of my divorce facts with matcha, azuki, yuzu, and kosho. During the holidays, when my four kids were home, the birds had 12 shoulders to choose from. But now that it's just me and my wife again, they're down to just 4 shoulders. So yesterday, I had 4 birds on me, which is not as cool as you might think it is, because the green cheeks are very territorial, particularly matcha and azuki with regard to kosho. They feel that I belong to them, and if kosho is anywhere around, they have to make sure that he knows who the boss is. They don't bother Yuzu too much, and Yuzu is pretty oblivious to the issue of territory. But being disputed territory among 4 birds is really not that much fun. Today I'm going to talk about a topic which comes up actually quite a bit in my practice, which is, what is a marriage? Now that may sound a little silly, because a marriage, obviously everyone knows what a marriage is. But there's actually some quirks to a marriage. The simplest thing is, if you have a marriage license issued by the state of New York, city of New York, any of the towns that are allowed to give out a marriage license, and the marriage license is properly executed, the ceremony happened, well, then you're married. Well, I had a client who had what he thought was a marriage license, but it turned out the person who performed the wedding was not qualified under New York law. So the license was rejected by New York City. So he didn't have a marriage. Where this also comes up is in Islamic weddings. Typically, in an Islamic wedding, it's a very religious procedure. There is some formalities, and it varies. Sometimes it's just the signing of the agreement in front of witnesses. Sometimes it's more of a ceremony. And many times, the parties do not get a civil marriage license. So when things go wrong, and now they're looking to separate, the question is, do they have a marriage? Now, clearly, the party that's trying to get away with more property out of the divorce is trying to claim, oh no marriage ever occurred, because we never got a civil marriage license. But New York has a very simple philosophy. We like marriages, and we will always find a marriage where we can. So the rule in New York is that if the religious wedding was solemnized by a person of a religious faith, and there are witnesses involved, we will recognize the wedding even if there was no marriage license. Now, what does solemnized mean? Well, it means that there was something that happened. Like I said, witnesses were there, and the couple affirmed that they were getting married, and it was their intent to get married. There's no specific ceremony that the state of New York looks to. It just has to be that the parties have agreed that they've gotten married before witnesses and before someone who is a religious leader or someone who is licensed by the state of New York. Now, you notice I said or. So you can have a religious leader who is not licensed by the state of New York, but a qualified religious leader. Well, New York will recognize that marriage, which means that all the property acquired during the marriage is marital, which means we have equitable distribution. We may have issues of postmarital support and maintenance. I just read an interesting case where a couple had gotten married in Pennsylvania, religious Islamic wedding. They never got a marriage license. Now, under Pennsylvania law, that marriage is void. But they came to live in New York. And the New York appellate court said, well, they lived in New York. New York recognizes religious marriages. Therefore, we're going to recognize this religious marriage. When there's a dispute as to whether or not the marriage occurred, what we do is we have a trial. And at the trial, we bring in witnesses. We bring in the religious leader who will testify. We bring in the witnesses who will testify. Maybe we'll even have pictures of the wedding celebration. And the parties may have lived together as husband and wife for a time after that. And that's how we'll prove the marriage. So if you have a religious marriage and you're unsure of whether or not you were married or not, give me a call. We could talk about it. Again, you have any questions, give us a call at Port and Sava, 516-352-2999. Remember, at Port and Sava, we help you get on with the rest of your life.